You're listening to the Talk is Jeep podcast, a discussion of everything and anything related to Jeep life. These conversations are recorded live, and the opinions stated here have not been checked for sobriety. Now, here are your hosts, Art Aldrich and Tom Chartrand.
Hey, good morning, Art.
Good morning, Tom. Happy New Year. It's 2024, January 7th. It's 10 a.m. This is a new chapter for the Talk is Jeep Show podcast, or the Talk is Jeep Show, which is, I think, what we're now officially calling it. And
sounds good to me.
We've made a commitment, I guess, to try to do this more frequently.
Yes, exactly. Talk about our Jeeps, every Jeep, and make 2024 a year to get out on the trail.
I think for me, the podcast is fun, especially when we're doing something like a jamboree or some kind of a trail ride or something like that. But for me, the podcast without a real conversation lacks something for me.
Okay.
My feeling. So the idea now with the Talk is Jeep show is to try to get more conversation with people, Jeepers, right? Let's get the conversation not just between us, but between many people. So we're streaming. We're going to record every Sunday morning, 10 a.m. for the most part, unless we're doing something. But we're going to really try to do it every Sunday morning. Right. We'll record it live. You can get on YouTube. I don't see anyone watching right now, but hopefully this will get out and people will start to. It's a first, so I'm not expecting much. But I think the idea is that maybe we can. I mean, every Jeeper that I've met loves to talk about their Jeep, especially
Definitely.
You. I mean, you're always just bragging about Julius, and it's like,
Julius
all right,
has a story. Let's do it. Let's tell the story.
Right. Let's tell. But I think other Jeepers would also be interested in telling their story. So the idea, maybe on this Sunday morning thing, unless we have some kind of really pressing story or news, is to talk about our Jeeps. Maybe the listeners will come on. We'll have a listener come on. And now, granted, what we're going to do today is my Jeep, and maybe we'll do yours next week or so.
Sure.
But obviously, we're in the video business,
right?
So our little Jeep stories might have a little more video to them, but photos or just get on and talk about your Jeep. I mean, the photos are easy. Everyone's got a phone. I went out yesterday and took a bunch of pictures of things that I fancy about my build, and we'll show them.
Right.
The idea is just to have a conversation about Jeeps and your Jeep, my Jeep, people's Jeeps that want to talk about their Jeeps.
But I think on here. Everyone feels it too. You go into a parking lot, you want to park next to a Wrangler. We were down doing Sunset a few nights ago, and somebody came in with a built-up JK, beautiful red, the big, light bars across the top, and they parked near us. You could see everybody looking. They love another Jeep.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's funny you say that, because when I am driving around like in a parking lot to park, if I see a Jeep somewhere, I will definitely go park next to it.
Absolutely.
even just as a little like a comparison, like what's he got, what's I got? Is my Jeep better?
Right. Or just a hello.
Yeah, there's a little competitiveness, like, oh, let's see what this guy's got, right?
Absolutely.
And that's true. So anyway, we're going to try to do this, have it be a conversation. I think that'll be more entertaining than just hearing us ramble. But in preparation for that, we've set up a Google Voice number. I'm going to give out the Google Voice number now. It's 802-441-5337. And that's basically 802-441-JEEP. If you spell it out on your phone.
Change my name?
Yeah.
No.
So that voicemail number is if you want to call up and leave a comment about the show, about anything, and then we will maybe use it on the air as on
a new show.
Yeah, on a new show. So you could call and leave feedback or something you want to talk about, show suggestions. things like that.
It's not easy to say.
No. If you're watching this live, like it's live, and this will become a podcast, we'll probably edit down the crap that, isn't so good for the podcast. But every Sunday morning it'll be live, and you can go on and you can put comments in, and we can see the comments, we can share the comments.
And it'll help steer our direction too.
You're right. And that'll be the interactivity part. And then, we'll do these as frequently as we can. But there's a concerted effort to do more.
Absolutely. So what do we have today?
So today, I don't know if you want to just get right into my Jeep or not, or if you want to talk about, you had a little trip and you were out.
Yeah. We were down in the Southwest, and I'd love to be able to add pictures to it. So I'm just going to sort of tease what we experienced out there. But my wife and I, on her big birthday week, over the week of Christmas and New Year's, went down to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and we drove from Denver. So made a big loop. It was not a Jeep. It was not a Jeep.
Oh, but the story ends here.
No. But we witnessed so many Jeeps. And what was wild was the trip from Santa Fe. We went to Abiquiu. It was sort of an arts and culture trip. So we were following the Georgia O'Keeffe Trail of where she lived and worked and painted. Ghost Ranch, which is up a little bit to the west of Carson Forest. All the red rocks, all the formations, and I think it'd be a great, little more of a detailed talk later because there were so many trails, beautiful places, red rocks, white rocks, all the way up to Taos where I visited a mutual friend of ours, and there were just so many muddy Jeeps that had come off the trail. It was just happy to see.
That's sort of like the mecca, I would think, of Jeeping, is to live out in the Southwest. So much public land that's accessible for off-roading, things that as I've said many times on this, podcast, like we're just lacking in the East, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Abiquiu is a place to visit. It's a tiny little nothing town. There's really not much there, but the national forest, the formations, Abiquiu Lake, which has gone down feet and feet and feet and feet over time. There were just so many trails out there that I wanted to explore. And
why no Jeep? Why no Jeep, Tom?
Well, putting 1,000 miles on a rental car, we had to look at the places we were going. We stayed in Santa Fe, did the Farolito walk at Christmas Eve, and visited all these different places. So it was a RAV4 all-wheel drive, and it was convenient for the trip. I know. It was a vacation, not a Jeep trip.
If you rented a Jeep, you could have deducted it as a business expense. I'm going to have to really have a talk with you off air about,
You'll have to talk to the accounting department.
All right. Well, we're going to, let me add this to our conversation because the last podcast that we did, and it was a pretty popular podcast in terms of views and listens. We did it live. We had the CEO of Jeep Jamboree on, and we talked about some of the new trips, the new offerings, and we've decided we can announce this publicly. You and I will be in Moab, Utah on the signature Jeep Jamboree there in October.
Going to be amazing.
And that's going to be an awesome trip, and that'll be my first time out sort of in the Southwest Jeeping. So
yeah.
That'll be fun.
Guaranteed you're going to love it. It's going to be great.
Yeah, that'll be a good trip, and we'll have a lot of build up to that. Hopefully a lot of video, and that's going to be with
Fred Williams.
Fred Williams, thank you. Fred Williams.
Yeah.
So that'll be a fun trip with Fred Williams, signature Jeep Jamboree. That's in October in Moab. I have one other Jeep Jamboree that I'm scheduled to do. That's in New York in the Catskills in September. I got the calendar for the year for work. There are no conflicts.
You're clear?
We're clear.
All right.
I was actually looking to see if I can add any additional jamborees in, but I have to see. How it goes.
Right. Well, if you need a co-pilot that you don't already have booked, happy to tag along.
All right, so let's get into the Jeeping conversation. I have some video and some photos. This is my Jeep. It's a 2018 JL Wrangler 2-door, and it's a Sport S.
And this one was one of the first, right?
This was, I actually went into a Jeep dealer and made a deal for a two-door JK. This was around June of 18, and the JLs were coming out, but I had made a deal with a dealer to get a JK two-door Rubicon, and it was a good price, and it just did not. The dealer, kind of played dirty a little bit, changed the terms of the deal. When I was actually up there, got dropped off, and was planning to take delivery and drive it home.
Right.
And they changed the terms, and I didn't do it. And maybe it was karma or whatever, but I went back and I was like, okay, what do I do now? And I went into my local dealer, which is the town next to me. This dealer was further away. And they had just gotten a four-door JL in. And this was like early, the early model year release.
Right.
And I looked at it, I drove it, and I was like, wow, this is really much nicer than the JK. Because I had just, driven the JK, and I had really a good time reference comparison. It was all fresh in my mind. So I knew that I wanted a JL. I didn't want a four-door. I'm not a four-door Jeep guy. To me, a true Jeep is a two-door. And ideally, I wanted a 5 or a 6-speed manual. Mm-hmm. So I started looking around. I obviously could have ordered one, but I wanted it for the summer. This was July now, and I really wanted a Jeep for the summer. I wanted a soft top. I didn't really care too much else about the package. I started looking around, couldn't find it anywhere. And then on Facebook, and this is probably, Big Brother's watching you, I saw an ad for this Jeep dealer in Maryland, Andover, Maryland. And they had a 2-door, 6-speed Sport S on the lot. And I called them up, and they gave me a very good, no BS deal. I said, I'll come down. I'll come down and get it like tomorrow. Just, let's lock up the deal. And we did all the paperwork over the computer and the phone ahead of time. And I went down, drove down. My son, actually, who had just gotten his license, drove me down, knowing he would have to drive back for the first time on I-95, which was a little
by
hairy.
Himself.
Yeah, by himself. And I took my younger son with me back in the Jeep, and we did the deal, drove home, and it was it was what it was. There was no choice. There was no other options. I took the Jeep as is. And it was fine because the Sport S model had the basic things that I wanted. It had the upgraded radio. It had a Dana 44 in the rear, but it was a limited slip. Yep. It was a Dana 35 in the front. But I knew that I was going to build it. I knew I wanted to build it the way I wanted to build it. And I just didn't see the point in going full-on Rubicon and then taking a lot of those parts off or changing them or doing, the things that I wanted to do. So I was happy with a Sport S. And I told this on the very first episode of Talk is Jeep podcast, where I went on a wait list invitation to the Killington Jeep Jamboree in Vermont.
Right.
The next year, I had done no work to the Jeep. It was stock. And I went up and did, the easiest trails that I could do. And it still was frightening and beat the crap out of my Jeep, but it made it amazingly well. Like, I was shocked how good this Jeep was off-road, its capabilities.
Some of the people there were too, if I remember, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And and I decided then I was going to just, build this up and do it the way I wanted to do it. So this is basically the state it is now. It's got a TerraFlex Alpine 3.5-inch lift. I knew I was going to do 35s. I didn't see the need to do any bigger. I was concerned about, breaking parts on the Jeep by going like too big or too bold.
Right.
So the first thing I did was the lift kit, the 35-inch tires. It's Method wheels. They're the 701 Method wheels that have the extra ridge in the rim. It's not beadlock, but it's supposed to give you more hold. Everything that everything I did in that first go round was purposeful. It was to make the Jeep, purposeful. I'm sort of a subscriber to the adage, lockers before light bars. So I didn't want to do too much cosmetically until I did the things that I needed to do. So the first upgrade was the lift kit, the tires, and I didn't change the gears. It had the 381s or the 351. I don't remember what the gear ratio was from the factory, but it was in the threes.
Okay.
And the shop that did the work, he's in my town, Total Performance in Mahwah, New Jersey. Chris said, just drive it first. You're probably going to want to do gears. And gears is a big expense, But when you lift the Jeep, you change the tires, you really need to do gears to get the most out of your, transmission. So here's a picture of the TerraFlex lift kit. It's not a long bar. It's a short arm lift. So it's got that arm that goes to the differential for stability, and I had done a couple of variations on it since then. But it's got the Falcon 2.1 shocks, and it was great. It rode great on the road. It was great off the road, and took it anywhere and everywhere I wanted to go. This is the photo here of the. I had originally put on these JK quick disconnects for the sway bar, and they were fine. They were cheap, and later on I decided that I was, if I went out by myself or I was with somewhere where I didn't have a set, because really to get those JK quick disconnects to work, you need someone to rock your Jeep on the opposite side, unless you're completely flat and level, which rarely happens.
Right.
And these that are rock jock, anti-rock, you don't disconnect them, but they have the articulation that you need to run it off road without having to physically do a disconnect. They've been great. They're not. I feel like there's a little more body roll than when I had the other setup with the factory sway bar, because you do replace the sway bar.
It makes sense.
But again, I'm pretty comfortable with it. I don't daily drive this Jeep. This is not my daily driver. I don't have to commute in, and I drive it for fun, basically.
Yeah. So
I don't mind the little extra body roll and things like that. It's got, like I said, the Falcon 2.1 shocks, and those are the non-fancy Falcons. And
similar to mine, yeah.
Yeah, it's got the TerraFlex upgraded steering arm, and I went with these Cooper Evolution mud terrains. The reason, so when I was researching before I did all of this stuff, I researched it, and I said, I'm concerned about the weight on the U-joints and the front, clips. I was concerned about going too heavy of a tire, too much weight on basically the factory axles. Especially the Dana 35. When you talk to people about axles and off-road and breakage, everyone's always like, oh, Dana 35 is too weak. It's, Achilles heel, blah, blah, blah. So I was very concerned about loading up too much weight on the ends of the axles. And the Coopers were very light as far as the tire goes in the 35-inch mud terrain style. So basically, going bigger with the rims over stock, I weighed it out. It was only 5 pounds more per wheel than the factory steel wheels with the smaller tires. So I felt very comfortable with that. And it's been great. These tires are awesome off-road. Yeah. Awesome. And they're a little loud on the road. I'm not going to lie. But again, it's a Jeep.
But you like that.
It's a Jeep. We drove this on a couple of, 1,100 mile journeys, and, we had ringing in our ears, I think, for a few weeks, but whatever.
A low hum. Yeah.
Aloha.
Yeah.
But I wore them out. I put about 40,000 miles on them before they were getting thin. I decided to replace them as is, same tires, same size, which is as much of a commitment to saying it's a good tire as you can do. Right. Like if you put it back on. I thought about going with some of the more popular Nittos or the BF Goodrich, but those were heavier tires. I just felt like this was the right call for me.
And they performed well all the way through.
They really did. I've got no complaints with them. So that's and underneath the Jeep, before we get into like the interior of the Jeep, underneath the Jeep, I decided to go with a full set of skid plates. Now, I didn't do steel. I did aluminum because I was, again, concerned about weight of the vehicle. And I went with these it's a Mountain Off-Road something engineering. And they make a bunch of stuff. And again, the two-door Sport, the JL two-door Sport, when I was building mine, was really a unicorn in the sense. A lot of places didn't have parts for them. It was new. Plus, they're selling way more four-doors. So it wasn't like I had a bounty of choices for the two-door JL at the time. Now it's probably more, choice, let's say, to build. But at the time, Mountain Off-Road Enterprises was the only place that was making skids. So it's got a full set of aluminum skids from Moore underneath, and I haven't had any problems with that. The big expense that I did, that you could see here, is the Rock Slide Engineering sliders, and these are the powered sliders. And the main reason that I did it was because my wife, who also loves to drive the Jeep, couldn't get in the Jeep with the bigger tires. She was having trouble with it stock a little bit, right? It's a little bit awkward.
It's high,
It's not ladylike, let's just say. And not that she's wearing short skirts when she's Jeeping, but, whatever. And so this was like something that I could do for her to make her feel, better about all the money I was spending. Because if I spent all the money and then she couldn't drive it, wouldn't be so good for me.
Right.
And these were not cheap. Again, these were I don't know if I would call it a luxury item, but certainly, let me go back here and just do it again. I think installed, these things were about $3,500. But I will say this. One, I like them as well. They certainly make it easy for me to get in and out quickly. And B, off-road, they're tanks.
Yes.
Tanks. Yeah. They've taken many hits. And I bought them with the extra armor. They sell like an extra piece for them. So they're fully armored. I would definitely put them on another Jeep. If you just get over the cost, we have a saying in our business, you buy once, you cry once. And I always try to buy the best that I can get at the time, just so I'm not replacing the same thing with something better later.
Right.
So I don't mind it. I would say this about my Jeep too. There's a theme to my Jeep. My favorite band, the sort of anthem of my life, comes from a band called Rush. Yeah. And there's my favorite album, which is Fly By Night. And this piece on my grill, this is actually a gift from a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
You may, I don't even know where you got this done. But
I
this
do
was
searches.
this was just an awesome thing that you gave me.
It blends
And
in so well with
yeah,
the bronze or copper look of the trim and the paint. It's perfect.
yep. And those trim rings inside the grill are about the only cosmetic thing that I added. Those came from somewhere, and I got a shaker can of bronze spray paint. I sprayed them, and they're just on there with 3M tape. But they match the wheels. They look good as a combination. I sort of like the bronze and the gray as a color combo. And
For
then
sure.
the blue in the owl I've used in a couple of accent pieces. But that's the theme of my Jeep. And I don't know about you. You have a custom license plate. I have a custom license plate.
Yep.
But your Jeep's name is what you've put on the plate.
Right.
And I've gone kind of back and forth on this. Like I have like a name I just use sometimes to refer to my Jeep, but Snow Dog.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't really say Snow Dog anywhere, and Snow Dog is another Rush reference.
Right.
But more people know it as, Fly By Night Jeep because of the plate. And the reason that I've not done more about it, this is kind of inside baseball a little bit, but I'm trying to, what I want to do, and I think this is really the reason, but what I want to do is I want to put a custom decal on the hood, where the Rubicon letters would be. I want to put on the hood Plubicon. Plubicon is a really inside baseball term for the broadcast TV business back in the 70s and 80s. There was a technical video tube that was like the best of the best at the time, called a Plubicon tube. If you had an expensive video camera back then, the camera had
studio
Plubicons.
cameras.
Right. But it also sounds a little bit like Rubicon. So I think it would be funny to have Plubicon on there because it just is funny to me. I don't know that many people would get it, but it is a little bit like Rubicon. But I think if I put Plubicon on there and I was saying Snow Dog, it would just be too confusing.
Right.
So that's where I think I'm going with this. And then what I am thinking about at some point is maybe wrapping the whole vehicle.
Oh, wow.
I'm thinking about doing a wrap. Yeah, I'm thinking about doing a wrap. And I would do it like almost like the scene around that Fly By Night album cover. I'd make the whole thing kind of a nighttime scene with the blues and the blacks and the grays. And then I would do some lettering. And I don't have any photos of this, but part of the reason I would do that is because I've got the rot, the paint rot, that is a common problem on the JLs. I don't know if they've actually fixed it, but I know many first year JL owners have this like bubbling in the paint underneath like the hinges, around the doors, around the windshield. There's a lot of discussion about it. I don't fully understand all of the science, but it's supposed to be some problem with dissimilar metal types, and they didn't treat the paint properly, like prime it at the factory.
Right.
And I
if
know
anyone's
some
experienced this, please message us.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at the JL Wrangler forums, there's threads and threads about it, and I think some people have gotten it taken care of under warranty. Mm-hmm. I tried in like my fourth year before the warranty ran out on that to get it done. The dealer basically just did nothing for me, told me they were looking into it, submitted the photos, and then it just never happened. So whatever. I may get the paint fixed. I don't know how much, if it's just cosmetic or if it's
actual rot.
If it's weakness in the areas where it's rotting. I don't know yet. But if I went and had to have that repaired, then I would definitely wrap it, because I probably wouldn't, respray the whole Jeep.
Right.
So anyway, a couple more things on the exterior. I have a Warren Xeon 10S winch. Again, I decided to go. This has got the synthetic rope for weight and for safety. This is the winch that Warren makes that is U.S. made, not made in China. There's a couple of other winches they have that are lesser spec, supposedly. Again, buy once, cry once. And I just, went for the best that I could get.
And it's done its job.
It has. It's got LOD bumpers. These are the destroyers, front and rear. Again, I went for something that wasn't a full width bumper. The rear bumper, what I liked about the LOD destroyer was it had accessory mounts. So I can run jerry cans. I run a fire extinguisher on there. On the other side, I have a mount for a power tank, and I've got my high lift jack on there. It's all very secure. It's like a two-piece, so the carrier can detach from the tailgate. You don't have to open the tailgate if you don't want to. The tire will swing away. It's heavy duty, very smooth. Just a nice, well-made bumper set. Again, I did so much research. I bookmarked so many things.
Yeah.
When I was deciding, and I went, back and forth many, many times, and this was just, what I decided I liked. I didn't want a full width. I didn't want a stubby. I wanted that middle width bumper, and very happy with it. No regrets. This is a picture of my brand new Jeep OEM twill top. And there was really nothing wrong with the old factory top, except I had a little incident. Not me personally, but my wife had the Jeep out one day in the summer with my youngest son. And again, she drives it, she loves it, but she's not like super aware of all the,
nuances,
the bits of the Jeep. She tried to take the top down one day. And I think she called me. We were on a job. I couldn't talk at the moment.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, she got the top down, but in the process broke a few pieces. So it was not a planned upgrade. It is an upgrade because it's a nicer top. The quality of the top, it's not like that plastic fake leather as the OEM. This is the twill. Right. It's very smooth, very nice. Like the color, it's definitely a deeper color, but and I bought it as a complete assembly. So the frame, the mechanicals, and literally I slid the old one off because she broke some of the hardware as well as the top. And I went and just bought the whole thing and slid off in 3 minutes. New one slid on in 3 minutes. Factory fit. Windows are nice, they're not scratched, and I'm pretty happy with it. But it wasn't cheap. I think it was $3,000 for the replacement fix. And again, I could have went Best Top route. Obviously, Best Top makes the OEM tops for Jeep, but there's a difference. My Jeep from the factory had a lever on the back driver's side. You pull the lever, the whole top slides down. Like you can put it halfway, and then you pull this lever, it goes all the way. The Best Top OEM version does not have that lever. You got to release it on two sides a little differently. This is a one-hand release. It's very nice. So you had to buy the Jeep OEM top to get that. The Best Top, their licensing deal doesn't allow them to offer that feature. Mm-hmm. You have to get the OEM top to do that. There's some new choices that just came out this year with other, Best Top things. But again, this is what I wanted. This is what I did. Now, one thing that I've added, and I've had a couple of variations to this, and I have a clip here. These are my door.
Yeah.
Let me go back from Oh, yeah. So before I get to the inside, so I've got on the front custom laser cut fender liners. These were made by a company called Burnt Customs, and they do anything you want. They've got some stock stuff. I think they're out of business, unfortunately.
Ah.
I bought the front set first, and I gave them the design of the owl. I mean, it's not perfect, but it looks pretty good. And the blue it's not custom. You have to choose from, some of the 3M colors that they had. But I mean, they'll basically do anything you want with the stuff that they have. So they cut this out and they sent it to me, and I bolted them in, and they're great. I didn't buy the rears because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do in the rears. And then when I went back to contact them, their website was down, and I'm not sure what happened there, but they don't appear to be offering. They wouldn't even answer my email saying, like, hey, if I wanted to buy a matching set without the custom, like for the rear, just tell me, whose fender liners you used. Yeah. And they never got back to me. So that was too bad. But the customizations there, they're great. They keep the crud out. In the rear, this is Outdoor Adventure Lab. And these are aluminum. The other ones are steel. I liked the clean look. I didn't want a crazy design. A lot of the ones that are stock have these crazy cutouts, and like it just didn't seem to match the style that I was going for. I wanted something very clean. I wasn't even crazy about that's their like logo.
The logo, yeah.
But I could take that out. I spray painted it with the same shaker can of bronze just to kind of tie it in. Yeah. And it's minimal. The only thing about these is that these use custom, they're quick release. It uses this nut system that it's like a quarter turn to release them. They're not like full screws. They're Torx head, and they're like quarter turn twist. They mount
like a lock-in.
Yeah, like a lock-in. They mount with these like custom nut zerts, which are, you put these in and you squeeze them, and it becomes like a threaded insert that's fastened into your Jeep. But I didn't buy the nut zert tool. If you've ever done any work on your Jeep, a lot of things use nut zerts to put like a captive nut into a hole. And they sell a tool, but I didn't want to buy the tool because I'm like, I'm not doing a lot of installs that need this. So there's like a hack where you use a drill and a nut and a screw, and you hold the nut and you flex it out so it pinches. It's a pain in the ass. And I couldn't get all of the positions to line up. Like some of the holes line up, some of them don't. And it was just there wasn't enough reach on the bolts to get the holes to line up, So they're solid, but I think I used 4 out of the 8 mounting positions.
Okay.
But they're not going anywhere. I haven't off-roaded with these yet because these were done last year, and last year, unfortunately, I didn't make it to any jamborees. So I haven't trail tested these, but it's on the list. Let's jump into the interior. I did a few things on the interior of my Jeep. This is the reason for my next upgrade.
Okay.
This is the Catskill Mountains Jeep Jamboree. This is a very technical Jeep trip, and you can see the obstacles here. This is like just a normal part of the trail, but obviously tire placement is critical in getting over this section. And when your Jeep is climbing up, a rock, and you're going up, it's really hard to see what you're coming down on or what your next position needs to be. And you can see my buddy there, Pete, he's spotting me. And I trust him, but he's not like a experienced spotter. And even I've had some experienced spotters who just aren't communicating enough. So I wanted something that would aid me as I'm, jeeping, to let me see where my tires were. And so the idea was to add a front trail camera. This is even before Jeep offered it, because I know in the new, like the 22 or the 21s, they started adding that as an option.
You were on that early on, yeah.
I was on that early on, but I couldn't. My factory radio, the 8.4-inch Uconnect, only had one input, which is for the rear backup camera. So I couldn't put just a camera in unless I put a screen in. I didn't want to load up the cockpit with a bunch of screens. So I decided to get a Stinger off-road radio called the Height 10, Height, Height 10. And it's a 10-inch radio, goes in just like factory, looks very clean. Don't have to do any cutting or anything like that. And it has 2 HDMI inputs. So that would let me run a trail camera in the front and be able to switch inputs, and I could see it on the front 10-inch screen. And you've experienced that with me in my Jeep. We used that first setup on a couple of the jamborees we did in 21 and 22.
Right.
The problem, if you remember, was that trail camera was crappy.
It
like wasn't high def,
right?
Wasn't even high def. Had a very poor exposure. It would get dark. It would get bright. It would get washed out. It wasn't great, but the angle was good. It did let you see in certain circumstances things that you wanted to see, but the angle wasn't. The quality wasn't good. So I decided to upgrade. I've upgraded that since our last jamboree to something called an Acumen M3. And the Acumen M3 is basically a DVR. It's a 3-camera DVR.
Of course it is.
Like a dash cam.
Right.
It's a mirror unit. It fits over your existing mirror. It has a camera in the back of the mirror thing, so it gives you that sort of high angle. And then it has 2 more inputs. And it comes with 1080p cameras, and they're obviously high def. 1080p is a high def camera. Yeah. And so I have one in the front low, like above the license plate, and I have one in the rear, because I didn't want to mess with the rear factory camera. Like that camera, if that's disabled, it adds all kinds of trouble to your life. Yeah. So I've got one in the rear, I've got one in the front. It records all the time. Anytime the Jeep is running, it records, and it's great. Again, haven't used it on a trip yet, but normally when we go, especially since we're in the TV business,
right?
We have cameras all over the Jeep. We've got magnet mounts, we've got suction mounts, high angle dashboard, windshield, front bumper, underneath. Yeah, we do a lot of stuff. But as you and I both know, GoPros, for as great as they are for certain things, don't always behave as expected.
Not as
and
reliable.
We've had many, many times where you hit record, it starts recording, it stops recording. You never know what you're going to get.
Right.
And it's a pain in the ass to keep having to sometimes jump out, make sure it's working, because you could do it on the phone, but again, it's like iffy, and it's a pain in the ass when you have 3 or 4 cameras, which is very typical for us. We'll hang 3 or 4 cameras on the Jeep when we're, doing something that we want to record. So I decided to try this Acumen. I'm going to jump over here for my website. Okay, so this is the Acumen M4 mirror dash cam. And again, it's like a mirror monitor. So when you turn it on, it's basically like a video camera for your rear monitor. You can look at the rear camera, you can look at the front camera, you can actually turn it off. It's got a reflective surface when it's off, It's basically like your factory mirror, but it is a screen. But I don't like it as like I don't want to see live video as my rear view mirror. It's just distracting. But you can just turn it off the screen, and it still records, but you don't have to look at it. And I'll just jump through a couple of pictures here. So there's the rear dash camera, which is high angle. It's a pretty good angle for that. And it's got two other little cameras there. And like I said, I have one over the front license plate. I've got one in the rear. The rear one's a little close to the trail damage area. So we'll have to see if that becomes a problem. But you can pop out the SD card and access your files. I do have some video somewhere here. Let me just jump up to that. Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, there's my high 10 Stinger. And what I like about the high 10, again, just to tie the theme together, you can set a background picture. So the background picture of my radio is the Rush Fly-By-Night. And there's the monitor in action. You can look at all three angles, or you can swipe and you can look at one. That's the high front. And you can scroll because it's 1080 video, and that
you're only getting part of the frame.
Yeah, you're only getting slice of a frame. So you can actually scroll it and look at a different part. So that's the rear. You can look at low or mid. It's recording the full picture, but the mirror is only showing you a part. But this is really the front trail cam angle that I like, and you can get really obviously low and just focus on the rock in front of you, which is what I really like. And again, you can
that really is sharp. Them, yeah.
And then you can turn it off, and it's just a mirror like that. Hey, there.
Like it. Yeah.
So, this is my 67 design phone mount. You can see on the dashboard. A couple more things on the interior. These are things I got actually for Christmas, my little stocking stuffers. This is I found these on Quadratech. I saw a video that Quadratech did, and these replace your mesh door pockets on the JL doors. The mesh pocket is terrible. It's not tight. It's saggy. If you do put anything in it, you can't close the door because it sags below the frame. They're really useless.
Do these stay up? Do they stay up above the frame when you put stuff in these?
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, because they're screwed in.
They build out.
And they're like leather and canvas. Nice. They're nice, and they're not terribly expensive. I've got one on each door, and I have one as a rear seat pouch.
Mm-hmm.
I've got, obviously on a two-door, you're a little limited for space.
Sure.
So as much storage as I can have, that's a close-up. Overland Outfitters is the company. And it's just a nice storage thing. They don't really have choice of colors, but it is what it is. That's the one that I have over the rear seat. It hooks over the seat rest post. It's got snaps, so I can keep things in there. Maybe I would keep electronics and things in this one. I haven't decided yet. This is what I have on the passenger side door.
Right.
This is one that it's more like a tool roll. I keep sockets and things in there that I need. I've got a first aid kit. It's got like the mole slots, so you can put mole accessories on it. It's not great because it doesn't fit the seat tightly at the bottom. There's no real mechanism to fasten it to the bottom.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's back and it sits up, if I have stuff in the back, it doesn't really move too much. But if the back was empty, that would flap at the bottom with weight because it's not really fastened. I had like a reusable tie, like a twist tie, but a reusable one. like trying to secure it, but there's really nothing under the seat to secure it.
Right.
So that's what I have on the other side. Those were new. Those are the most recent things that I added to the Jeep. Let me see what else I have here. That's the radio. You see my little Cobra CB radio. That's an all-in-one. I have an antenna that's disconnectable on the back with a quick connect. I don't use the CB as much. When I first got it, it was a requirement of the Jeep Jamboree.
Right.
Then they switched to GMRS. So that's just in there. Doesn't get a lot of use. This is like a little problem that you didn't know you had until you knew there was a solution.
Until you knew it was a problem?
Yeah. So this is the Jeep replacement high-performance windshield wiper arm. And I put this in slow motion to try to see it. It's basically got 4 nozzles in the wiper arm, and it sprays the water directly from the wiper instead of from the windshield mount. And it does get you much better coverage of spray. The spray gets all over the window, and that was a very poor showing of video on my side, but
there were times we needed it, that's for sure.
Yeah, so it's just a little thing, and it's not terrible. It's not expensive, and it's a worthy little upgrade. The only thing that I would say, if you're thinking about doing this on your JL, the connectors that are in the hood area are very weak, and if you pull them in the wrong direction, they snap.
They won't connect again.
They snap off, and then you're broken without a way to connect a hose. Right. And I actually went to I broke one of the. It was like I think it was a 90 or a T-split, and I broke it, and I couldn't get another one. Like, I went to Jeep, and they're like, "Well, you have to order this whole thing, this whole assembly." I'm just like, I just need the connector, but they don't have that as a part. So that didn't work out. And here's the radio. I have not installed this fully yet, but I did buy, this is from Epic Adventure Outfitters. Okay. If you follow YouTube at all, and some of the guys like KC250 and Adventures Till Now, or whatever Sean's website is, I can't remember his channel name, but you guys know if you watch YouTube Jeep videos. Epic Adventure Outfitters is like a Jeep performance shop. They do a lot of Elephants and 392 upgrades, and they just build big Jeeps up in Canada, Western Canada. But they made this system because I use the power tank to inflate my tires, and I mainly got that because it's fast. I could do 4 tires in a couple of minutes as opposed to an ARB compressor or something. But one of the upgrades that I did last year, after I did my 456 gear swap, I decided to put lockers in, and I did the lockers in 22. Right. After I ran the Catskill Mountains Jeep Jamboree without lockers, which it's a requirement to have lockers, at least one. And the guy basically said, "You will not be allowed back next year if you don't have lockers." So I bit the bullet, and I went with the ARB air lockers front and rear. I was, I didn't want to do it with the Dana 35 in the front. Like, I was thinking, I should just upgrade the axle. Right. And then get a different locker, because, why put a locker in something if you're going to change it? And I figured at some point I was going to change the axles. But I couldn't wait. I didn't want to go for the whole Magilla with the axle. It's a lot of money to swap out the axles and do something, beefy and maybe with an RCV joint or something. But I went for the ARBs in the Dana 35 and the Dana 44 in the back. And I had to put a compressor in. So I went with a compressor just for the lockers. and it's under the passenger seat. And then I was watching another YouTube video, which is always dangerous. And these guys at Epic developed a system to have a air compressor under the seat with a mount, and then have this ability to put a hose system on. Now, the hose system would be so you could quickly plug in on each side of the Jeep a quick connect to fill up your tires. And they have it for each side of the Jeep. So you plug in one hose on the passenger side with a quick connect. There's another fitting under the driver's side seat, and you can fill up your tires on both sides without doing a lot of running around.
Using that same compressor.
I've got a different system, and I got you one as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's by like an Australian company. It's called IndieFlate. Let me see if I can bring that up. Yep. So this is a great little thing if you're needing to inflate or deflate your tires. And they have a 2-tire, they have a 4-tire, has a very good pressure gauge. And this is what I've been using with my power tank. Mm-hmm. I put 2 tires on at a time. I could fill them up. They do balancing, and they get equal amounts of air. So it's great for inflating and deflating tires rapidly. You can put this on in the deflate mode and I do the 2 fronts, get them down to whatever I want to run, 15, 12, 10, and do the rears. And then same thing going back up with the power tank. One fitting, it like as a Y, T connector, and I do the 2 rears, I do the 2 fronts.
Right.
Again, it's a little bit of hose connections, and I got to run one all the way to the front and one to the back from the power tank. But this Kraken is basically using a simpler system to do the same thing, but it runs off the air compressors. So I bought this and never put it in.
Okay.
It's sitting in my garage. It's on the to-do list, but I think if I do it, I would upgrade to like a twin compressor. And then maybe what I would do is maybe not bring the power tank. I don't know. I have the power tank. It doesn't really add any complexity to it. And the power tank is good also. I don't have any air tools, but if I wanted to run air tools, I could. Right? The power tank is a high output PSI system, much higher than
the compressor.
So that's my Jeep, Tom. That's my story.
That's a lot of Jeep art. When we go through mine, it's going to be a much simpler story.
No, I want nut thread sizes. I want valve compression ratios. I expect more from you, Tom.
We need the builder on. We got to still get him going because he's got a great story too. But
yeah.
We'll work it.
So as far as like what my next things are, I probably would say, maybe a wrap is, cosmetic, but maybe a wrap. I would like to replace the front seats. I don't find them super comfortable. I would like something with more side bolsters. I don't know.
To do those 1,100-mile trips?
Well, even just like I find like when I'm using it off-road even, there's too much side-to-side movement for me in the seat. Like I don't feel like I'm, secure.
Held in.
Yeah, in the seat. So I would like to get something more comfortable.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how to do that. I know that the new 24 Wranglers have a new seat. So maybe if that fits, if it's bolt in, I don't know. That's something I would like to do on the list, the wrap. And maybe the axles. And I say maybe because I probably will wait, only because I've got so much invested in these axles with the lockers.
You gotta give them a turn. Yeah.
And the gears. But if I were to break an axle, then I probably would upgrade them.
Sure.
And that's generally been my MO. If I break them. You know what I didn't talk about? I didn't talk about my LED lights.
Ah.
I did add LED lights to my Jeep. The first time was out of necessity.
Right.
The rear taillights I smashed on a trail at the Catskills.
Yeah.
It was a very narrow trail between two trees, and the rocks were placed in such a way that they were not even. So I went over a rock on the passenger side and pinched the driver's side taillight into a tree.
Okay.
It popped out, but it broke. The rear taillights, the factory taillights, are on springs, and they do dislodge with like a quick disconnect. So it did its job, but it broke. Still broke. So I put in, let me see if I can go back to that. I think there's a picture.
Okay. Well, the underlying theme of this is the Catskills may not sound like anything big, but that's a challenging jamboree.
It really is. It definitely is. But it's awesome. It's one of the best I've done. So I put in the JW Speaker Flush LED taillights, which are great. Love them. Mm-hmm. They wrap in. They're really nice and tight, tucked to the body. And then I also went and did the JW Speaker headlights. I put these in the rear. And then I did a pair of Halo JW Speaker headlights in the front. Those have been great. Those are much better than the factory halogens. And again, I didn't want the Jeep LED lights if I was going to replace them. So again, another reason why I didn't wait for a Jeep that had a bigger, equipment feature list. Yeah. And then I also added these fender flares to the front and rear. These are the KBB fender flares, and the fronts have a LED light. The Outdoor Adventure Labs makes a very cool LED light for the front that if you have the Rubicon fenders, you could trim them and put this on the front. I didn't have those. Again, I didn't want to do those. I didn't have paint matched flares.
Yeah.
But this KBB one is very nice. It looks like that. The only problem is that the front one, I must have a defective light, and it's been that way since I got it, but I just never, and once it was installed, I didn't have the time to chase it down. I thought it was actually something in the wiring maybe I did, because I did them myself, but it wasn't. The automotive shop that does all my stereo work looked at them, just like, no, that's a defect in the light. So I got to just replace the whole flare probably, because I think the light is molded in.
Right.
But I have those. Cool. Yeah, I have those as well. So that's it. But in terms of, where I'm going next, seats, maybe axles, wrap. But, you're never done.
Right.
You're never done.
But it sounds like you're going more for aesthetics now that you've done all of the build-up.
I've done most of the major stuff. The only, and this is a little, this is something to debate, because the Jeep Jamboree that we're doing at Moab has the option to use, they provide a Jeep.
Right.
But if you bring your own Jeep, they give you a discount. So but for that trip, and I think for the Rubicon, which is also bucket list, you need to have 37-inch tires. I have 35-inch tires. So what would I do? I'm pretty sure I could run 37s on my lift that I have now without any problem. The only problem would be what I would probably do is I'd probably get new rims and new tires, and I'd be able to go back and forth between 37s and 35s. Probably what I would do.
More of a lift or no?
I don't think so.
3.5? Okay.
I think I'd be good, and I think my gearing would still be acceptable. I probably would be at the edge of my ratios with the 6-speed, but I think it would still be manageable.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Those are things that are on the horizon.
Another bucket list.
Another bucket list. So that's my Jeep, Tom.
And I love it. I love it.
You have any questions? We didn't get any real viewers, but again, it's the first one. So if you're hearing this on the podcast, you can tune in Sunday mornings, 10 a.m. on the Talk is Jeep Show YouTube channel.
Right.
And
watch, listen, ask questions. We'll provide links to the manufacturers that have all these accessories that we put on.
Yep, we'll put the links up. And again, just to repeat the ways to reach us, Tom, talkisjeeppodcast@gmail.com. And we have a Google voicemail line where you can call and leave comments. 802-441-JEEP, 802-441-5337. And you can call and leave a voicemail. We might use it on the air. But you could say, hey, you guys suck. You don't know what you're talking about. This is great. Whatever. We had a couple of emails come in since that, Jeep Jamboree podcast.
Okay.
People are very appreciative of the podcast and the conversations. It seems like it's striking a chord with certain people, but we'd love to hear more feedback. So drop us a note. And let us know what you want to talk about. If you want to talk about your Jeep, want to hear about your stuff, your adventures. Yeah, absolutely. Anything you got. So,
all right.
That's all I got.
Well, it was fascinating going deep into Snow Dog and
or Plubicon.
Or Plubicon. MoneyCon. And we'll take a look at Julius in a future episode.
We will. Hopefully, we'll see. It might be next week or the next podcast. You got to get your, you've seen, I probably set the bar maybe a little high, but I expect nothing less from you.
Absolutely. I love that fly around, that 360. But what you're going to see just as a teaser is a TJ that, I've loved for a long time. I've always driven TJs and have kept it a little bit more, I wouldn't say stock, but stock look. So you'll get to see my light khaki TJ.
All right, we're looking forward to that. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Art.
And we'll see you guys all next week.